All right. So, Cruz, you and I were talking when the cameras weren't on, and we got into a really interesting topic. And I was like, well, we have to record it. So let's do it. So, the thing we were discussing was you talk to founders who are doing between 3 million to 10 million ARR, and then they hit a point where they need help to scale. And you brought up something so interesting that hear it, but not as much as you do. So I want to double click on it. So when you talk to founders and you hear that they have some gut feelings, how do you turn them into actionable roadmaps? That's what I want to cover. But before we go there, I want to talk to you about what are some of the most common gut feelings that you hear them say out loud to you, or maybe sometimes maybe they shy away, they don't tell it directly, but then you sense it and then you try to extract that information out of them. So walk us through what are some of the gut feelings that you hear them say or sometimes not say, and how do they affect what they are trying to do, where they are trying to go, and how do you help them?
Okay. Well, let's unpack that. But first, I'm going to say the following. Gut feeling, it's also one of the variables that anybody should absolutely use when making a decision. Because what gut feeling is revealing is alignment. Okay. Energetic alignment. And it's basically when we say gut feeling, there's a reason why they say gut feeling is because we also have neurons in our stomach. Did you know that? We have neurons in our stomach. We have neurons in our heart, and obviously we have neurons in our brains. And there's a connection between all of them. And what happens is sometimes the heart or the stomach can process certain things faster than the brain can process them.
I love it.
Therefore, when you feel like you have a gut feeling, is basically your subconscious mind, having an answer that your conscious mind has still not had the time to integrate and to articulate into a logical reason for making a decision one way or the other. I mean, you asked me like, what are some of the examples? The simple one is just when you meet someone, you are going to hire somebody, and you're like, this person, like on paper, looks amazing, right? And you talk to them, and they're like, I don't know what it is. I just this person is like not, and you can't really like put a name to it, right? But there's something about that person that just doesn't feel aligned with who you are, or you kind of like you don't trust this person completely, right? So that's very much your intuition at play. I That doesn't mean that you need to not hire the person. Okay, you have to use that opportunity to kind of like just be curious about why you're having that reaction, because sometimes that reaction may be the result of something slightly different, which is basically it's a personal trigger of yours. That person is triggering a memory
Yeah.
or something that happened, or a person that you met, or just the name of the person. Like, you maybe at one point you worked with a person named Aarti, which was a flake. And then this person now comes in to interview Aarti, and you're like, holy shit, maybe she
Yeah.
is like that person. You know what I mean? And it's like
Mhm.
completely logical, right?
Yeah.
So we just
Yeah.
have to listen to our gut feeling, and allow ourselves the grace of processing and seeing what's. But I would say, going back to the concept of alignment, is basically honoring our sensors, our body sensors. We have sensors in our body that are telling us information, and you have a beautiful brain, perfect, but you also have a knowing and an intelligence that is beyond just your brain, and we need to be able to navigate those two worlds. And have you ever heard that there's an expression that people make an emotional decision and then they rationalize it with
Oh
logic?
my gosh. Yes, that's how you make sales. That's exactly when you win or lose a sale. That's the reason. I love
That's
it.
the
Yes,
reason.
continue.
Continue. So okay, I will continue. So it's all emotional. The issue or the myth is that it's like you need data to make decisions, and like, yeah, you do need data for sure, but you not only need data, you also need your knowing, your intuition, your heuristics. You're being able to make a quick decision just with very little information, because there's a knowing that you have that you can't even explain, and it's hard for even for science to prove it. Anybody who's been around in business and it's doing well knows that you have to listen to your gut feeling sometimes. Because I'll tell you personally, when I haven't, and I had a kind of like, this just doesn't feel aligned, and I was like, okay, I'll do it, and then you regret it, and you're like, I knew it, I should have listened to myself. Have
Yeah.
you been in that position before?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So kind of like to wrap it all together and to elevate the conversation even more as to like how do we frame that? How do we put it into words? What structure can we give for this intuition to be more on the surface, more available to us? Okay, and to give it the space that it deserves. It's through a vivid vision, just having a really clear vision of what it is that you want in your life, like for example, and in your business, right? So knowing, for example, what are the things that you expect to have, like what are the values that you want to live your life by, what are the values that you want for your company, what is the culture that you want to create in your company, like what is the growth that you expect to have, like what
Yeah.
kind of identity you expect your company to have in the future. All of those things can be articulated, okay? And what's interesting is that a lot of people have ideas and they know they want something, but they don't allow themselves the opportunity to put it into words, which is completely, I mean, I kind of understand, but it's kind of weird, you know, that because in a way, I always use this phrase. I tell my founders, place the order. Like, what is it that you want? And like a lot of people struggle with that question. They don't know what they want. And
I
and
love
it's
that frame. Place the
yeah,
order. Oh my gosh, I
place the
love
order,
it.
place the order. What do you want? And
Yeah.
then what happens, and I'll tell you this, this is my you're going to find this so interesting because my conclusion is that a lot of us, not everybody, but a lot of us have a problem with placing an order for what we really want because we filter what we want with what we think we deserve.
Mm.
Sit with that for a second. What we think
That's a
we
really
deserve.
powerful frame. Yes. Yes. I totally resonate with it for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes what we think we deserve is not what we really deserve, but what it's just what we think we deserve, which may not be necessarily aligned with what we want. And the
Mm.
reason being is that what you think you deserve may be a function of what you think is possible, because maybe you had prior experiences of your fears, okay? Of your fears of being seen, of being successful. And you're like, what? No, I've never heard of anybody like that. Really? This is a thing. But some people are, for whatever reasons in their history, something that their daddy or their mommy told them,
Yeah.
they carry these things for a very long time. And it's not until they sit down with this and they have an epiphany, an aha moment that, they were carrying that mental block, is that they understand that they have been perfect just the way they are and that they deserve everything that they want for themselves. And that
That is
that is a
so
place that is a
interesting.
place of
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. How do you advise people to go from one to the other though? Like how do you help them get out of it?
It's a process. It's a process. It starts by, going back to the framework that I've shared with you, my 4 core pillars of scalable growth. The first thing that I do is to just get really clear on the vision and the mindset of the founder. Because what I want to do is I want to shift them. I want to identify. Well, first of all, I want them to place the order, right? I
Mhm.
want them to think of like the biggest, most aligned version of their life, okay, for their company and for their business.
Mhm.
Because let me make it very clear: in your business is a
Mhm.
vehicle for your own growth. So
Mm.
if you think like that they're in two windows, two separate windows, you're not understanding. I mean, the business should be there to make you grow, right? Not the other way around. Okay. When we place the order for both, for your personal life and for your business. So once we do that and we get through that exercise, most of the times I'm going to identify that there are some things there. I'm going to, like, in some cases, for those founders who are more challenged, they're going to, maybe not be as aggressive with their order. They're not going to be as, I don't know, as big and bold with their request. And some are they don't have a problem in that sense, because this would be kind of like their I mean, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I'll just say that you can either be in an abundant mindset or in a scarcity mindset. And sometimes some
Mhm.
people don't understand that they're in a scarcity mindset and they think they're in an abundant mindset. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
point is, once I identify that there's something there, then I try to move them into identifying, like, what's, like, once they place the order and the order is clear, it's like, okay, what do we need to do to get you there? What are the things, what is preventing you from you getting there? And that's where they list a series of things, and then we talk about them. And that's where we identify what are the real mental blocks, the fears, the archaeological beliefs that may have come from when they were three.
Yeah.
And that's when we get more clarity on what the real issues are that are not allowing them to step into their highest version of themselves and their company, right? Like, what the company is an expression of your ability to conceive of its impact, of its size, of its reach, right? Of its growth. So you as a founder need, like, if you allow yourself for it to be abundant and expansive in the view of your company, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a company that is going to grow because you have that mindset. And the other way around is also true.
What I wanted to ask you as a follow up is, let's say once you identify what's actually broken, how do you help them prioritize what to fix first?
So there may be certain things that, like, for example, if you have a founder who has a scarcity mindset problem and they also at the same time they want to scale their company, gee, that's something that we probably need to address first, right? But going back to the intuition piece and to the gut feeling is making sure that they really work the details of their vision, so that every time they have an intuition or something, they just kind of like remember that, is this aligned with me? When we get those moments of gut feelings, it's all about alignment.
Yeah.
So I just, like, I honestly feel that we don't give intuition enough credit in business from an academic perspective, because it's really hard to frame it scientifically.
Yeah. 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 Which is, again, it ties so well together, which what I was going to ask you, because I want to give the listeners something tangible. So if they are going through some of this, they are navigating through some of these challenges, to unpack that feeling. What has worked for you with your clients in the past? And what advice do you have for people who are, again, on a similar journey, but they're not where they're working with someone like you? If they're not there yet, they don't have that advisor in their pocket, what do you give them to navigate through that? Couple of frames that you could give them, what type of questions you ask them to unpack some of that?
Well, the first one is, and this has come to me over time, is the power of curiosity.
Mm.
So I mean, I have so many instances where in the past, when I was younger, when I was earlier in my career, where somebody would say something and I would be like, I would make my own conclusion of what was said and I would react. Okay. And over time, what I've learned is that, everybody has a reason to say what they say. Everybody has a vision that may or may not be aligned with yours. So the best thing to do is to, for example, ask, why do you say that? Like, tell me more. I mean, even like that, tell me more. You know how powerful that phrase is? Tell me more.
It's true. I 100% agree. It just shifts the frame from presumption to, well, now I'm curious. What made you say that?
Curious. Yeah, what made you say that? Tell me more. And then the
Yeah.
person is like, now look what you've done. You've validated their position because now they feel like you really care to understand where they're coming from. So they don't feel like you are kind of like already making a judgment. You just want to know. And
Yeah.
then they have the ability to talk it through. And sometimes in their talking it through with you, eventually they hear themselves say the thing that they were thinking. And they're like, oh, okay, well, what do you think? Maybe they'll ask you, what do you think? You'll be like, oh, all right, let me tell you what I think. I heard you and I think this is good or bad or whatever. And here's the way I think about it. So it becomes a conversation and it becomes medicine for both parts because now you've understood that person. Okay. So now the communication has taken place because a message was given and a message was received on the other end.
I
Understood.
love that. Yeah.
So communication
Yeah.
happened, right? So now from that place, you can take that to another level. You can agree to disagree. You can agree that there are pros and cons to each of the things, or you can, even better, come up with a better idea together.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so powerful because communication, and when the conversation happens, that's the key to relationships, right? So let's just have a conversation. You don't have to please anybody. But then if someone disagrees, it could also just come from a place of curiosity. What made you say that?
Yeah. So even when somebody has a, somebody has an intuition, it's good to ask them, like, tell me what comes up for you when you say that. Like, tell me
Yeah.
more. Just get them to express.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, when they do that, I mean, it is my experience. It may not be yours, but it is mine. Like when you ask a person to kind of like, you allow them the space, you hold space for that person to tell their truth and to be able to verbalize it and articulate it, they respect you more.
Yeah. Yeah. And at that point, it's also a good use of everybody's time, right?
Yes. The reality is some people are going to be like, well, you haven't been in one of my business meetings. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes decisions have to be made fast and whatever. So you have to temper this message that we're discussing right now in the context
Yeah.
of business, right? So maybe it is, why don't we talk about that later? I would love to hear more, so it's an invitation to connection later, as opposed to having to address the issue head on, or saying yes or an absolute yes or no immediately. I think that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I am someone who really resonates with real examples. So I wanted to give the audience a taste of someone you helped and how they came and they had one of those limiting beliefs and their gut feelings, and then how you helped them go to a place where they really understood, oh, okay, I get it, and then you were able to help them. Give us a taste of someone you helped.
So this is a person, by the way, this is not a client, but it's a person that I helped. So this person has been following me on LinkedIn, and they reached out and they said they just wanted to talk to me, and I was like, sure, let's just talk. I mean, I've also, I know this person is legit, and it's a person that I also respect as well. So we kind of like did intros because we have never spoken before. We kind of like organically started talking about her problem. Okay, so this person is working at a place where the founders of the company are, they brought her to grow the company, and they brought her because of her expertise. But when it comes to making decisions and just doing the things, they get really apprehensive, and they maybe even dismissive. Okay, of this person's ideas. And so this person was sharing her frustration with this whole thing, and like, in a way it was just kind of like pinning it on them, on their inability to allow outsiders into their circle of trust. And then we started having a conversation where I started asking her some questions and gave her some examples, and then ultimately this person came to the conclusion that part of the problem is that she had a perspective that maybe she was being treated as an outsider. And that perspective was getting in the middle of her being able to really understand what was the real issue that was happening in their minds or in the level of consciousness of the founders. And when she understood that maybe she was as much as responsible in the co creation of this reality as the founders who were kind of like being quote unquote dismissive, right? That's when she had her shift, and she's like, you know what, maybe I need to also change my perspective, because I do have a, I'm coming into this with the perspective that maybe they are not letting me do the thing, or, and maybe that's not even true. Maybe it's just trust needs to be nurtured. Maybe it is they have different communication styles. Maybe she doesn't really understand their priorities, and maybe she needs to spend more time doing that. So there's also maybe some work that can be done on the other side to align both people. And she was so very kind. She was just like so thankful for that insight, which is, it sounds kind of like simple right now, right? But if you're like in your head, and if you're going through this problem, and now this problem is creating a resistance within yourself, a resistance that is so powerful that maybe you're carrying that resistance home with you, and it becomes something that kind of consumes you and distracts you from being able to see the truth, and somebody just with a few questions kind of like unlocks that and simplifies the vision of what needs to be done, then you're very thankful, right? So that's it. That's the power of creating insights and breakthroughs for clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I have something similar I want to share if it's helpful for anybody. I have a three-part framework I use. Whenever I get overwhelmed because I'm trying to get somewhere and I'm not going there, you need to reflect that you have a problem. you're trying to get somewhere, but you're not getting there. That's why you're anxious. Unless you come to terms with it, you won't make progress. But once you accept it, I have a problem. I'm trying to get somewhere, but I'm not able to. And you accept that, and then you try to unpack. I look at three things. What is it that I want to achieve? Why do I want to get there? And how? And I think
What's with the balloons?
most of the time, I know, it's just the hand gesture or something I'm doing. So I think most of the time I'm in my way if I don't spend enough time on what and the why, and I try to get to how. That's way too soon. Don't go there. Only thing you need to figure out is what do I want? Why do I want it? If that is so crystal clear to you and you just stop there, how happens, but it doesn't happen and it's not helpful unless you have the what and the why clear. So why is the what important is because you need to have a destination. What is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? If you don't have the what clear, then you're basically trying to go somewhere without a map, and that's not helpful. Why is the why so important? Is because you need that why on the days when you're ready to give up. And that's when you need to keep going because the why is so strong than anything else. And when other people give up because they don't know, they're not sure what their why is, but you're very clear, you have a very strong why, it'll help you not to give up on the days when you're ready to give up. These two things, how somehow universe helps you figure that out because you're so focused, that's all you think about all day. So that's the frame that has helped me a lot. Whenever I got anxious, I got overwhelmed being a business owner and a mom, I go through these things, and I'm sure many other people, you're a father, and many people who are listening today, they're probably in 30s, 40s, 50s right now, and we all go through this every day. If your why is strong, I think you'll get there. But I just, whenever I tried to go to the how too soon, that's when I tripped and it was bad.
So now you know why I start with vision, right? Because the vision is in the end is kind
So
of like your why.
important.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just the vision is part of the reason why you are doing the thing, you're building the company, you're showing up every day to play,
Mhm.
and having that clarity is what basically unlocks all of the other areas of your life. And I'll just add another framework that I use for from my coach David Bayer. So he says that there's really only two states of being. Okay, a powerful state or a primal state. And you
Mhm.
can't be in both at the same time. So if you're in a powerful state, you're calm, you're grounded, you're curious, you're collaborative, you're fun, you smile. You know, you're not
Yeah.
loose, relaxed, right? On the other end, is being in a primal state, which is where you're like in survival mode. You're scared, fearful, tense, sort of like, everything needs to be done quickly. It's time is of the essence, all that energy is basically being in a primal state.
Mm.
And what he says is, and now this gets a little bit more metaphysical, but let's put it this way. We have the ability to basically live in a powerful state, which at all times, okay, and be able to create the reality that we choose to. It's our choice what reality is that we create. We create it through being in a powerful state, through the power of concentration, through hard work. I mean, you can meditate all you want, but you need to take action, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you when you create things from that state, it is that powerful. So what you have to assume, well, first of all, you have to be aware that if you're in a primal state or in a powerful state. That's step number one. You realize, well, this thing is it putting me in a primal state or in a powerful state? If
Mhm.
it's in a primal state, what you have to assume is that that is not true because it's not aligned with you. Anything that puts you in a primal state is not aligned with who you are. Okay. So if it's not aligned with who you are, then the opposite is true. So for example, I'm not going to have the money to invest in developing this system. And that puts you in a primal state, right?
Mhm.
So the opposite is true. It's like, I'm going to find a way to pay for this because this is important for the growth of my company. And then when you operate from that new empowered belief, then guess what happens? The synchronicities happen. Then all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, a bank came to see you and lend you money, or you were able to sell better than you expected this month. and now you have a little bit of a surplus, so then now you can use it to invest in the thing that you want to build. But we have to allow kind of like the universe to do its thing by being positive and having, like, trying to shift our beliefs from those beliefs that are putting us into a primal state and transmuting them into more powerful beliefs that allow us to basically create better things. That's a work, and it's constant work. You never stop doing this. Like, I do it all the time. So there are times when I'm, there's really nothing wrong in my life. Everything is perfect, and I'm in a primal state, and I don't even know why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
At
then
the end of the day,
at
we're
some
all human.
yeah, well, I mean, it happens to all of us, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I have to, first of all, not put any pressure that I need to solve it, but I recognize that I am in a primal state. And then, in over a few hours, maybe even a day, something kind of comes clear as to
Mm.
why I'm feeling like that. And then that's where I can identify that belief that I'm having, or that feeling that I'm having about a thing, must not be true, and the opposite must be true. And then
Yeah.
I start reframing that belief into one that is more powerful and more aligned with who I am.
Yeah.
So a very metaphysical conversation today, Artie. But I think
Yeah,
it's
I know. It
yeah,
feels
it's
like therapy.
yeah. We didn't come here to we're not
I
gonna
don't know how that happened, but
enroll you
hey.
into a cult or anything like that. But it's that's just the way. I mean, look. I mean, we try to, as business people, right? We try to keep our spiritual vision private, right? But we at the end of the day, we all have one. Whether we know exactly which one it is, or we kind of know, or it's imprinted from our our families, or passed on through generations or whatever. We all have one, and we just need to acknowledge that we are a spiritual and emotional beings. I never said religion, because religion
Yep.
is for everybody to figure it out. I say
Mm.
spiritual, okay, which is
Yeah.
different. And I just think that we need to be able to be more comfortable with accepting that that's a thing, right? That we have to activate it
Absolutely.
and make it work to our benefit.
Yeah. No, acceptance is the first step for sure.
Mhm.
And it changes the game. Yeah, lovely conversation. Just and again, that's not how we stepped into it, but I'm so glad we went there. Yeah, and again, we'll have a lot more conversations. So thank you again. It was really good. I hope people took some tangible action items from it. But again, if you guys haven't yet, then I'll put the LinkedIn links for both of us in the chat, and also in the description for the videos, wherever this goes and wherever the podcast is released. Please come follow. And we're both building our businesses. So it's a journey. It's also, we're just having a lot of fun. And these days and these years of building the business is not coming back. So I'm just so excited that I get to share this with you.
Thank you so much for the invitation, for setting this up. I always say this: life is good. Let's build it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you everybody who was listening, and we'll see you again, and you get to listen to us next week again.